So hey guys, guess what? It's actually time for a topic video. I have not done one of these in a very long time, and boy am I rusty. I just want to take a break from them for a bit because I felt I was getting a little burnt out on them. But this is a question I actually got earlier this year. In this year, I mean 2018, in case you're watching it in the future. But it was for my yearly Q&A. If you guys don't know, I do a yearly Q&A thing to like start off the year and end off the year. And I told people if there was a certain question that was too long, I would make it into my own video and its own little thing. And that was one of these, and it was one that I feel not enough people talk about, and or maybe they do and I just don't see them from the YouTubers I watch. It's how to make time for art if you have like a very busy work schedule or a very busy school schedule. I had this person ask me, like, oh, I go to school and I have a part-time job. How do I make time for art? And I mean, the easy question is you make time. That's the easy answer. But I feel like that's too vague. And it's one of those things where it's sort of like when someone tells you, oh, it's easy to lose weight. Do you know what I'm saying here? Like, for some people, yes, it is very easy to lose weight. For others, it's very hard. And for some people, it's easy to keep to a schedule. And for some people, it's not. That's someone like me. I tend to try my best to schedule out my day in my planner. I have one of those. I used to use a bullet journal, but I got one of those, I think they're called like Good Happy or Go Happy. So, I don't fucking remember. I'll do a video on it later. But it's sectioned off, so I have, the month set up and all the weeks of the months. And so that way I can just kind of fill out week by week. Because before, what I would do is I would like handwrite everything, and that was fun. But my old bullet journal was getting to the point where I couldn't even fucking close it, and it was getting irritating to look in when I couldn't even close the stupid thing. So I tried doing that so I can keep to a schedule so I can see what I do in a day. Now, granted, for someone like me, making time for art is really easy because it's my job. But for a lot of people, it's not. And for a lot of people, they want to get into it and they want it to be their job, but they don't know quite how to do it, what to do, that kind of thing. And so what helped me always make time for art was back in the day, back when I was in high school, art was like my go-to thing. As funny as it is, I really didn't play video games as much as I did until I met one of my best friends, Dakota, in high school, I met her my senior year. And she's the one who kind of got me back into video games. And so before that, and I read, but I didn't read a lot. And so what I would do, art was my hobby. That was my thing. I would constantly catch myself doodling in my notebooks. I would be writing my story stuff every now and then. But I would be constantly doing art. I would be that person drawing characters in their notebooks. I would, oh my God, I look back and I have more Copics now because I collect them over time, but I had a 72 set of Copic markers and like that clear case it came with, and I threw that in my backpack every day with everything else, and I would take that with me, and I would take that to school while I would work, and I would go to school and stuff, and this is why I was a bad student, because I didn't focus on my schoolwork. But thinking of that, and then the same went for when I got my first job. When I got my first job as a teacher's aide, it was actually sometime after I was done with school because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing with my life. There was like a 3-month period where I was applying to places. I was thinking of what to do about my future. I tried getting into school, but I couldn't because I waited too long because I didn't even know if I was going to graduate. So when I got my first job, I think what helped me a lot, and this is going to sound weird, is that my first job was a full-time job. My first job was minimum 8 to 12 hours a day, mostly 8, but we did carry over sometimes because public school. But doing that, it forced me to make time for my hobby, which was art at the time, and I was getting into video games and I was getting into reading more and all that jazz. And so what happened was I would notice I would have, at least for me, I would have these long breaks of time in between my work. You know, when the kids were at recess, when we had nap time, which wasn't often, but when it did happen, we had nap time. When we would have the breaks between students, because as I said, we would have, you know, it's a full day for me, but we'd have two sets of students. We'd have the day class and the afternoon class, and then we would have, you know, they would get a recess and a lunch. So throughout a full day, I would get about 4-ish breaks. And I remember the longest one was always our lunch, and that was the in-between when the students would come. So whenever that would happen, my other coworker, not the teacher, but my other, because they had another teacher's aide there, she was in school, and so she would bring her schoolwork, you know, or we'd talk or whatever, and we would just doodle and stuff. And I caught myself being really bored during these chunks of time because I don't take that long to eat, especially back then because I didn't eat much, you know. So I would be there with my little sandwich and maybe a juice box and some peanut butter or something. Yeah, my lunches were sad. But I would be there and I'd be like, shit, I still have like an hour of nothing to do. And in that hour, I would notice things as I had later jobs of people just wasting time. Because back then, this sounds really, really fucking old. It wasn't even that long ago. It was in 2012, I think. Yeah, it was in 2012. Smartphones were becoming a thing. Like, they'd already been around, but not everyone had a smartphone. I know I fucking didn't. And so a lot of my friends didn't. So because of that, people weren't able to just dick around on their phone like they do now. You know, I mean, they were still texting. I was still a very bad texter. But we didn't have mini computers in our pockets. And so I bring this up because during that lunch, that's when I would pull out my sketchbooks or I would bring out my markers and my pads and I would just draw and I would work. And then when I got home, if I didn't finish something, I would just finish it. Or when I was home, another thing too was I wasn't living with Cody at that time. So it was kind of just me in my room with my tablet and my computer. We kind of stayed to ourselves, you know, so I would hovel in my room and then I would be like, oh, there's still a shit ton of time left in the day before I have to go to bed to, you know, go back to work. So that's when I would draw. And it was never a big deal for me, but you know, I see people now who do it, and I saw this too when I was working my part-time jobs, after my teacher's aide one, when I was working at the supermarket, because I forgot what I called it in my video, whatever. When I was working at the supermarket, you know, if I had a full day shift, which wasn't often, but did happen sometimes, I would get a 2-hour lunch. I don't know why, but I would get a 2-hour lunch. And so I would sit there and I would be so bored, especially for the fact that I didn't have a car at the time, so I couldn't go anywhere, or else because a lot of people in that place would go places if they had that long of a lunch. They would just fucking leave. And I wasn't a cool bean. I didn't get my license until after that job, so I didn't get to drive. So I would be stuck at my work for 2 hours doing fucking nothing. I would eat, but that'd be about it. And I never knew how to work the stupid TV. So I would draw. I would find time. I would draw. And at that time, I was also going to school, but I was going to school part-time. So again, it was easier to move around. That was one good thing about that job is on days I had class, they would not schedule me on those days. So, you know, if I had 2 classes in one day, which was I think how I was when it was back then, it's been a while, you know, I would be like, okay, here's a 4 or 5 hour shift of work for school. Now I have the rest of the day, you know? You know, when you have a 4-hour shift, you have 20 hours left in the day. And a lot of people don't think of it like that, or they don't like to think of it like that, and that's just how I think of it. You know, I really hate wasting time. It's one of my biggest pet peeves is wasted time, which is why, I always try my best. If I'm going somewhere, if I'm in control, I try my best to be there either early or, you know, right on time. I do not like being late because I came from a family that was constantly late, no matter what we would do. And, well, I love my family. what they would tend to do is they would do this thing where it would be like, okay, it takes exactly 14 minutes to get to this person's house, so we only have to leave in 14 minutes. And I'm like, but parent, there are lights on that street. There are traffic. There is other things. What if someone else wants to come along? Like, we shouldn't leave just because it's 14 minutes away. Doesn't mean we should leave 14 minutes before we're supposed to get there. Because we'd always end up being late, and it always drove me insane. And the same goes for now. You know, if I make plans with somebody and for some reason they fall through, I like telling the person as soon as I can. I like telling them, like, the day before or even sooner, hey, shit's going on, I can't do this thing. So I'm not wasting their time, because I really hate it when people waste mine. Because you can't ever get time back, you know what I mean? You know, I was a person that would constantly waste my time. And that's just it. You know, when you want to make time for art, you have to make time for it. You know, if you have to weigh your options, and this is something I always tell people, especially when art isn't your job, you know, and that sounds snooty to some people, I've been told, but it's true, because this is how I was. Back when art wasn't my job, I didn't stress. If I just felt like not drawing that day, I just wouldn't draw that day. If I felt like only drawing that day, I would only draw that day. But you'd have to weigh your options with things you want to do. You know, do I want to read this book, or do I want to work on a commission or work on merch? Do I want to play a game? Do I want to go out with friends and family? Do I want to do this and that? Do I want to do that? And it all goes down to scheduling and time management, which is something I constantly talk about in my videos, because it's very important. And the problem is, if you're like me, because I am also bad at this, you have to hold yourself accountable. You know, if you want to be serious about this, then be serious about it. If you don't, then don't. But here's the problem. I'm talking now towards more of the younger kids, the kids who don't have jobs and are in school and just, I'm talking to you guys for a minute, because I have a lot of you who constantly tell me, you're stressing out, you want to do this, you want to do that, and you don't know how, and you do blah, blah. When you're still a kid, I'm not saying don't be serious. You should be serious if this is what you want to do. But don't stress yourself out to the max about it, because then when you're an adult, it's going to carry over and it's going to be terrible. That being said, I'm not going to say don't stress, because trust me, I was a teenager once. I was there. I thought, this is the worst stress I'm ever going to have in my life. I don't know what I'm going to do. What the hell is my life? Oh my God, no one understands me, blah, 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 blah. And then I became an adult. And by that I mean, I had to start paying bills. I realized what credit card debt was. I am, currently now I am saving to move out and have a wedding, on top of having to worry about, taxes and taking care of my pets and taking care of myself and a lot of other things that those are little things I never had to worry about as a kid. I say little things, those are big things I never had to worry about as a kid. And I thought I had stress. And then when I became an adult, I realized, oh no. I thought that was stress. It's not. And by that, I'm not downplaying your stress, because everybody handles things differently. But that being said, you need to look out for yourself. If, let's say, like me, drawing was something I did for fun, to relax it, and made me enjoy it. Whenever I had a piece that wasn't working out, that was stressing me out, that was irritating me, I would get mad and I would get more stressed out, and then I would sit there and I would waste time being like, well, why am I even doing this? Why am I doing this? It looks like shit. This art is terrible. I am a terrible person. It's the one thing I'm good at and I'm terrible at it, and all the negative thoughts coming in your head. And to my younger self, I wish I could have just told her, just don't do it. Find something else to do. But at the time, I didn't have anything else. Like I said, I didn't really play video games. I didn't really read. That was pretty much it. It was that and hanging out with my friends. And role-playing on my phone with my friends sometimes. But that was it. That was like it. You know, I didn't do much. And so if you have a very active life, I like to use my brother as an example of this, because he was a very active kid for a long time. He still is. But he was all AP classes. I think he still is. I know he's going to graduate soon at the time of recording this. But he's like all AP classes, marching band, and clubs, and finding time for friends, and finding time for gaming, and finding time to keep a really great grade point average. And I remember being like, oh my god, man, how do you do all of this? Because I didn't have my shit together then. And he told me, he's like, well, it was from watching you. I watched you and our other brothers stress out so much about this stuff. And he's like, and I didn't want to do that. And I'm sitting here like, that's amazing. That's great. That you have better time management than I did at your age. And I think that's something that we need to go back on and worry about. And again, if you work full time, take your stuff with you. Find time to doodle it. If you go to school, you know, then you don't know when you're going to have time. You can make time. There are things now so you can doodle and do art on anything. A lot of people don't realize that. Is a really good friend of mine, actually, Pastel Monster, she told me that half the time for a lot of her charms, she just doodles on sticky notes at her work when she has free time. And then when she gets home, she takes pictures of it and puts it in her computer. And so I'm sitting here like, see, you can find time for art. You just have to make the time. And again, it's going to be hard at first, especially if you're not used to it, but you need to try to stick to that schedule, you know, and maybe not have art be your whole thing. Maybe it'd be like, okay, for this 1 to 2 hour chunk, which is, I'll say like a normal movie length, think of it like that helps me out, you know, normal movie length of time for art. You can easily schedule in 2 hours of art a day. You know, it's kind of like working out and doing other things, like I said. You can easily find time to put a little in there to schedule your time. And I hope that answered your question, whoever commented that, because I forgot to write your username down. But I hope that also helps anybody else who is wondering about this. That's my advice on it anyway. And that's how I get through it. Is, yeah, just like I rambled on about. So, I'm going to leave it here. As always, guys, I will see you next time. Bye.